Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for 3 Ways Data Drives Virtual Expert Medical Opinion Utilization, presented by 2nd.MD. Before we launch into the main presentation, I'd like to go over a few brief housekeeping items. First, today's event will be about an hour long, and we will be recording it. We will email you a link to the archive recording so you can view the presentation again later if you'd like, or share it with a colleague. Please disable your pop-up blockers to ensure you have no trouble viewing the slides or links in today's web event. This event is interactive. Please feel free to submit questions to our speakers using the chat box on your screen. If you would like to enlarge the slides, you may do so by dragging the corner of the box. This function allows you to make them larger or smaller. All the widgets are also resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. Please take a moment to visit our Resource Center. The box is on your console. Here you can access a number of resources that you might find helpful. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar that I haven't covered, clear your cache and refresh your browser link to refresh your console. If that doesn't work, please feel free to reach out using the Q&A box. Finally, at the end of this event, we will present you with a survey. Please take a few minutes to fill it out and let us know your thoughts on today's event. Now I'll hand it off to Meg Worth of 2nd.MD, who will take you through the rest of the presentation.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. We're really happy to be here today and excited to share the latest information on how second opinions are not only a tool for clinical expertise, but also really key for effective cost containment. In addition, we're thrilled to have Optum with us to share in this discussion. We have Matt Lisevich with us. Matt is the Market Vice President for the Payer Partnerships at Optum. For over 12 years, Matt has held leadership positions for healthcare companies focused on management of complex conditions, electronic medical records, risk and quality programs, remote patient monitoring, wearables, and population health solutions. So thank you for being here, Matt. As well as Dr. Michael Menon, the National Chief Medical Officer for Cardiac and Pulmonary Diseases. As Optum's National Medical Officer, Dr. Menon is responsible for driving superior health outcomes through the integration of quality, innovation, research, and care delivery. He collaborates with health systems across the nation, payers, other healthcare providers, in order to really accelerate the improvement of care provided to members and patients nationwide. We're thrilled to have him with us today and also for the ongoing partnership. As you can see by the panel that you have in front of you, Optum has partnered with 2nd.MD to make second opinion solutions an integral part of their own services portfolio, and will be sharing with us today how they have made some strategic decisions around second opinion services integration, and then how that service has increased overall engagement of the membership and ultimately really resulting in lower medical costs. So, Dr. Menon, I'm going to have you start us off. And can you just share with us a bit about why choosing second opinions was important to Optum?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this panel, Meg. I really appreciate it. And I think second opinion solutions are a fantastic opportunity to improve healthcare. I was looking at an article from the International Conference on Scientific Information that said that in the world today, over 220,000 journal articles are published every single year. That's more than 600 a day, 365 days a year. And in addition to that, the FDA, I noticed recently, had approved over the last few years over 200 novel drugs. That's just one aspect of how fast medical care is advancing, faster than ever. And so given to communicate not only by voice, but by recording images and medical information, it's more important than ever to view the medical team in a much broader way than it ever has been before. We are able to use technology to access experts that we never had access to and other resources that are necessary as well. And this allows us to explore options and treatments that we've never had the advantage of accessing before to get the best possible treatments for our patients, no matter where we are. And particularly when I think of oncology or neurologic disorders or genetic disorders, which are somewhat esoteric, these medical treatments are far more complex. The information in each specific area far more profound. And so we rely on specialists to help us provide the care. And this care has never been more required. It has to be easy and we have to be connected. It's what people have come to expect. And so I think employers and plans are realizing this, and that it's necessary, very important for us to create ways to provide it.
I think that's just a really helpful way to start off the discussion. I heard you say a couple of times as I wrote down how important access to care and connecting that care is as you're developing your strategies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you see second opinions working within the broader framework of virtual care, or maybe even alongside care delivery?
Absolutely. And I think, again, to emphasize that this is the greatest opportunity we have to expand our knowledge. So we know that COVID and the pandemic and our current situation has accelerated the way that our members are interacting with the healthcare system and receiving medical care. And so they've really adopted this idea of telemedicine and are using that to interact with their primary provider. But this can also be used to extend the capability in ways we've never even imagined before, to garner expertise and develop a more specialized approach, offering our patients more significant care and virtual second opinions for complex cases that really is the democratization, if you will, of healthcare. We can bring it to every place that can access the internet. And so in a way, members are able to participate and develop personal interactive consultation with specialists that are extraordinary experts in their field that would otherwise take weeks to see, and they would have to travel miles to access. So I want to emphasize, they do not provide direct care. What they do is provide expert thought and guidance and opinions and access to knowledge, but they also listen and develop an understanding and another perspective on patients that enhances and supports both the member and provider in delivering the best possible care to their patients in a world-class way of experiencing this. And I think, to emphasize this, you can see this every in other types of businesses too. Patients are demanding this standard of care, this access. And so this is not the future. This is something that we need to be building now.
As I'm listening to you talk through the urgency of now and kind of democratizing specialty care information, you just brought up the point of bringing this access and information both to members as well as to their local care teams and providers. Can you speak a little bit more from your own experience how local markets might be receiving this information?
Can you explain that a little further? I'm not sure I understood that.
Yeah, well, let me ask it in a different way. As a provider, you just mentioned that this was a tool that you could use for additional expertise and specialization. You mentioned how this information would be really helpful to members as well as to providers. And that makes me think about a question that I hear a lot when I'm out talking about this program, which is, how do providers really feel about second opinions?
Well, again, I don't think that we want to be backseat driving any kind of therapeutic relationship between a doctor and a provider. We don't want to create any sort of dissension. What we want to do is introduce thoughts, information, support, to that relationship so that they have the information and access and ideas necessary to develop the best possible course of therapy for their patients. So I think a lot of care needs to be taken in how we interact with people, how we provide that supportive environment and attitude so that we are seen as a thought leader, perhaps a collaborator. And I think in this way, we're all on the same team, if you will, in trying to drive the best possible care for the patient.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Menon, for adding that additional perspective. I know it's one that is extremely credible coming from you and one that we take your advice and guidance on frequently. Maybe turning it over to you, Matt, as the market lead for Optum's payer relationships. Can you tell us what you're hearing from plans around their biggest pain points or maybe areas that they're really looking for your help?
Yeah, absolutely, Meg. Optum partners with health plans and employer groups across the country with our analytical programs, with our clinical programs, with our PBM services, and they're really coming to us to help them solve their most pressing problems and really expect that our solutions are going to be interconnected among these capabilities. But most importantly, they're really looking for ways to control costs, help them be competitive when it comes to working with their employer groups or within their government contracts, all while driving the quality and the experience for the members. And I'd say most recently, some trends that we're seeing in many of our discussions is how do we help them achieve these goals as well as strengthen the provider relationship and avoid any added work or abrasion that they don't want to provide to that provider.
So how does introducing a second opinion help them achieve those goals that you just laid out?
Absolutely, yeah. So as we've talked a little bit about, our clients are focused on the incremental ways to impact medical expense so they can deliver back value to those employer groups, really investing in critical projects that impact access to care, member experience, and improving quality. So offering a second opinion service helps us deliver on that. And to build on what we're seeing in the market, one example which makes this really difficult for clients, and Dr. Menon touched on this earlier, is cost utilization trend with drugs on the pharmacy and medical benefit. There is just a tremendous pipeline of new drugs that come to market every year. And there's an expansion also of indications that are on the market already for existing drugs. For example, Merck's Keytruda has been approved for 10 plus indications in the last 2 years, and it costs $150,000 per treatment. The good news is that providing provider decision support is one way to slow down the pace of this growth. And we see second opinion as another way to really offer that service to really drive towards the best outcomes and keeping these treatment costs down. And while it's common for a health plan to have UM in place and medical policy on certain high-cost procedures, this approach really varies quite a bit from cancer to maybe an MSK procedure. We like that second opinion solutions actively engage the consumer to be a part of the process. And as we've experienced outside of healthcare, many consumers are researching and making buying decisions. And we believe the Optum Second Opinion service is an easy tool that can be used to help them navigate their health and across these conditions. I would say lastly, this is very easy to integrate within our existing programs in place with clients. We formed this partnership so we can complement other complex and specialty condition programs within Optum, such as musculoskeletal, but also to extend more value to our clients beyond what they may be getting today. In addition, our clients are able to benefit not only from the savings, but they're saving time with contracting, security assessments, still having one account management team, less IT work that they have to do to stand up a program and implementation, and the work that's associated with maybe oversight for one more vendor.
Thank you for that, Matt. I'm taking down all of the information, this great information that you're sharing with us, and I'm hearing you talk about this as a comprehensive tool across all conditions. Opportunity to grow some revenue streams because it's really easy to integrate with other programs. Do you have any insight on how this program is being received maybe from the employer groups or the members that your health plan clients are serving?
Yeah, it's quite simple, Meg. We're really busy. There's a lot of interest among our clients. Payers, employers really need to, they're continue to evaluate what's driving these costs and how do they mitigate them when it comes from MedEx spend. And as I mentioned earlier, we believe this program, and we're hearing this from our clients, it really addresses the problem from a different angle with the consumer, which creates new value. So we're actively engaging those high-risk members for that second opinion service prior to the procedure. We're hearing that proactive approach is really helpful in identifying members earlier in the process before their diagnosis is far advanced and they're costing a lot more money and having a lot more procedures done. And the program really creates a world-class member experience and produces loyalty. As a consumer, if you can make it easy for me to navigate and get access to top-notch providers, then that's a huge win. Then having this solution cover all of the specialties and subspecialties for both adult and pediatric and medical and behavior makes it really easy to drive engagement and adoption, as I don't really have to make it available for a limited set of conditions. I can cast a lot wider net among how I deploy it.
Thanks, Matt. So as I think about this program, and I think about second opinions, and I think about the themes of being a comprehensive tool across all conditions you mentioned, particularly beneficial for those having higher risks. Can you speak a little bit? Are you in a place to speak about how Optum specifically went through the process of evaluating, selecting, choosing, implementing a second opinion partner to work with?
Yes. Yeah. What really stood out for us in choosing a second opinion solution was the ability to deliver on our total value story with clients and their stakeholders to improve outcomes, lower costs, and improve the member experience as part of our existing programs or by offering it as a standalone solution. And 2nd.MD made it really easy to implement for our clients so we could provide a effective clinically focused program. And, we have to keep in mind that many of the folks on the line today, they'll tell you this, there's only so many resources to go around every year when it comes to activating new programs and capabilities. So it's been really important for us that we can bring this to the table for our clients and stakeholders and their stakeholders and really stress that this is easy to implement. This is not going to take a ton of lift and resources to stand up because of those limited resources. Treatment decision support with a live interaction is really important to consumers. And that's something I want to stress here. That's something that we firmly believe we're confident in, and we're really hearing very positive feedback from our clients. You need expert-led care that is done live. From a consumer's perspective, my discussion with the provider may change on a live discussion, right? If you think about having that consult, there's going to be things that evolve maybe during that time on that consult. So if I have an appointment and my provider's there, it's just as if I was going in for an in-person consult. And some other things that really resonated with us with 2nd.MD is we're seeing a 97% member adherence rate to specialist recommendations. So we think when you have that live consult, that the member is now engaged in that process and they're more adherent to carrying out maybe the recommendation or the care plan that they're now involved in. So they're really buying into that process, which we think is really important. And 2nd.MD, as you know, has worked with us really to create a great consumer experience. And that really starts with connecting all of our programs together. So if we have a client that's working with us for musculoskeletal, or we have a client that's working with us for oncology, we can be really flexible to their needs and layering this as an added layer of value and how they deploy a second opinion service.
Makes a lot of sense, Matt. As you talk through consumer experience, which is something that we're incredibly proud of at 2nd.MD, as well as adherence to outcomes. But we know there's a lot of programs out there, and programs are only beneficial when you actually have members engaging with them. With all the benefits and programs available, can you share how Optum helps support getting members engaged in a program like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to take a step back and really realize that members don't always outreach to their health plan. They're typically working with the provider, They may not understand what services are available through them. Often the first time a member may call the plan is for things like benefit coverage, claims, are they being paid, what's my out-of-pocket cost? And knowing that you have a solution that can be proactive is really important. So Optum's using predictive analytics to really know who is that future utilizer. And that's the means in which we're engaging members. Looking at utilization patterns, what type of care they're receiving. These are the leading indicators of future costs and how we can be proactive. So we approach proactive outreach by establishing potentially a weekly claims data feed, using ID and Strat and predictive analytic tools to really pinpoint which of those members are the most likely to be that future high utilizer, and then begin outreach to all the high and moderate risk members. I do want to call out that that's not the only way to go about this. There's also ways of establishing awareness and enrollment with members without claims data. That could be through means of prior authorization, connecting ourselves to that, or through another referral process with the employer or the health plan. So there's many different ways we can go about this, but claims data really in this connecting this way gives us the ability to be very predictive around who is most in need of services like this. And as we've talked a little about already, we can also offer this in some of the other programs that we are already providing to our clients, such as oncology and cardiology and health and MSK. So it just becomes another leg of the stool in which we're using to activate members.
For Matt, just for everybody that's listening today that maybe doesn't speak proactive outreach in the same way that you and I do on a daily basis, can you help share an example of maybe an opportunity that would be identified through your predictive analytics?
Yeah, sure. I think the one area that we could probably all think about here is musculoskeletal. We have a lot of members and consumers who are using services around the musculoskeletal space. It makes up a lot of the medical expense for the stakeholders we have on the line today. And it's a big cost driver. It's one of the top. So if I'm a member and I'm experiencing lower back pain, I've not met with the provider yet potentially about treatment options, but I may be utilizing physical therapy or chiro. And if we start to see that those individuals are maxing out their benefits or they're getting close, those are some of the early signs and those indicators that would be someone we'd want to identify for engagement so we can help them get the answers that we want. These are really people that we can help.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly sounds like you're identifying the right people through proactive outreach. But do they pick up the phone and have you measured the value of that engagement?
Yes, they actually do. We found that if you create an environment where it becomes clear to the members that this program is available in an integrated fashion through the plan design, and then you engage in outreach to those members when they show up in the analytics, you're going to start to see that adoption and uptick of people really utilizing the service and those that are really in greatest need. Based on our experience, 38% of the cost savings in our program in 2020 came from proactive outreach. So we're seeing some very clear signs that there's a bucket of people that we really need to focus on. And cost savings for those proactive cases, surprisingly, which was really interesting, it's actually 17% higher than the non-outreach cases. So the savings is actually larger when we do the proactive outreach. And what we found is that this has resulted in an average cost per consult of about $5,700. So across the board, proactive outreach is definitely important here. But I think the key takeaway is if you're not doing it, you're not reaching all the consumers that could benefit the most.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to press you with one more question because I have a lot of questions that folks have submitted ahead of time that I'm going to try to just get through on this last question related to consumer experience. But what are you hearing from members? Are they okay with the proactive engagement, or maybe what are you hearing more broadly, no matter how they were engaged, whether it was proactive engagement or they raised their hand through a self-selection into the program?
A lot of the time, members aren't aware that this service exists, and they're very grateful that we've reached out to them. It's been very positive feedback we've gotten because of that human touch as well, that they're getting that live consult. It really gives them the peace of mind and clarity during a time that's really uncertain. members don't always have to travel for these expert consultations. So if you can imagine, this could be a huge expense for them to get on a plane, pay for hotels, find out when you can meet with the provider. And in some cases, you may even need to go back. So the speed in which we can help them now access these providers is tremendous, especially for a patient who may be going through a very difficult time in their health. There's really a lot of comfort in knowing that I can meet with that provider quickly. And, you know, I'm going to stress this again, that face-to-face communication makes all the difference in medical certainty and peace of mind for the member. If it feels like I'm connected to the provider and we're having that live discussion, I'm probably going to be more leaning in more to my care and really being adherent to what the recommendations are and what the expert advice is. And I have also access to some of the world's most advanced experts in their field to consult about these medical issues. So I'm getting that same experience if I was in person in the comfort of my home.
Thank you. I can see why that would be a huge benefit. And I know several people in my own life that have benefited from that as well. To give you a break and let you have a drink of water, I'm going to switch us back over to Dr. Menon here on the questions. But if we stay on that same theme, Dr. Menon is someone with deep clinical expertise within our healthcare system. Can you share within your own personal experience around how you can see a virtual expert second opinion improving outcomes and connecting that member to care? Do you have any member examples maybe that you could share with this group?
Absolutely. You know, I have a fantastic example of how this connection occurs. I was involved with a colleague's daughter who got ill, and I think that parents, all of us who are parents, can just imagine what it feels like. We have a daughter who's perfectly healthy, and then she shows up one day and says, you know, I'm having fevers and unexplained shortness of breath, and my heart is pounding, and I'm weak, and I can't function. And that just hits us all in our hearts. And so in this colleague's case, she took her to a world-class healthcare center. And so, you know, having all of the expertise and capabilities that you might imagine would be associated with that, but the complexity of her situation and the vague nature of her symptoms made it more difficult. So 2nd MD was brought in, and I think, to me, this is just sort of the dream team. This is what medical care can be at its best. They brought together a group of experts from around the United States, each experts in their various fields, neurologic, rheumatologic, cardiology, and they were on the phone at the same time, collaborating, thinking about what could this be, what's the best course of action, how could we best get to the bottom of what's causing this problem. And I personally have never been part of a discussion with such far-reaching implications with a group of people that was so expertise. So I don't consider this just simply a second opinion, but rather a way to guide, diagnose, offer opportunity, expert ideas in a synchronous way, live, face-to-face, with a group of experts forefront and together collaborating on developing the best possible care. It was a fantastic example of the power of this kind of communication and collaboration.
In this particular example, this case that you're sharing with us, Dr. Menon, you're talking a little bit about how 2nd.MD and the Second Opinion program at Optum are able to bring together experts in a collaborative way to address some really complex problems. Can you give us a little insight on how important or how you see provider-provider communication playing out, or where you'd like to see it play out in this world of virtual care?
So provider to provider communication is worth gold, right? Right now we have ways of communicating that are have been by phone, or it's hard to connect people. But now these new capabilities are connecting us in ways that not only allow us to share information verbally, but we can share imaging and other data and collaborate in ways and communicate to develop these ideas and understanding that we never have before. Before we had to look up articles and access, maybe Google information and rely on local providers that are great, but maybe don't have the breadth of experience. And so it's just very comforting to imagine that as a local provider, wherever you are, that really the care you're delivering is you have free access to all of the possibilities, experts. And so in a way, they're your medical group. We are able to think of it as we have all these experts in our medical group that we can just contact and access and ask for advice. And that is just a fantastic feeling of both comfort, security, and it allows us to provide care to our patients with confidence. And so a fantastic way to practice medicine, knowing that you have all of this at your disposal.
Thank you. Really, really helpful. I love how you talk about extended medical group. I wrote it down as kind of a nugget of information here. Right back at you, Matt, just for one more quick minute. We've heard two examples in a really short period of time here. We just heard Dr. Menon talk about the importance of virtual medical consultations in these really complex situations where you need to have multidisciplinary care. And you shared with us a little bit earlier when we were talking about proactive outreach, how beneficial layering and expert care can be around something like musculoskeletal. Where do you see, across kind of the full condition set, where are you seeing the biggest cost drivers of the plans that you're working with? And maybe where do you see second opinions most likely to add value across that high cost condition set?
Yeah, there's certainly no shortage of areas that are creating costs and challenges, and oncology and especially drug is one area that's very big. Musculoskeletal, to no surprise, is certainly another area that's that's driving a lot of the costs. Radiology, oncology, cardiology, women's health, of course, and mental health. But when we look at overall, all of this is driving those top medical spend. But I think the bigger opportunities in areas like musculoskeletal, oncology, that is where we can really layer on this program to what we're doing today. Or, provide it as standalone. When we're typically working with our clients, we're providing them with things like access to our network and centers of excellence, providing utilization management type services, provider decision support. We do a lot of work around providing specialized clinical management. So if you have oncology nurses working with a member, that makes a difference versus someone that's more of a generalist. And then a lot of focus on accurate payment of claims. But by bringing in now another layer of value with the second opinion service, we can now offer something, again, that improves the member experience, is expanding that access to care, and allows us to be a lot more proactive and empowering that consumer earlier, sometimes even when we know the extent of their health issues. So working with 2nd.MD is really make it easier for us to really integrate, implement with our existing clients that, very focused on members and user engagement. And we've consistently seen feedback of NPS scores at 91% for the members who have participated in this benefit.
Thanks, Matt. I know that working with Optum, second opinions have been integrated with programs across many of the areas that you just mentioned. Dr. Menon, when you think about adding in second opinions, when you think about the opportunity as it relates to improved outcomes across a number of conditions, where do you think the future roadmap of healthcare is headed?
So it's, communication. It's a coordinated health plan is what leads to good clinical outcomes. The ability to overcome some of the barriers and distance to get better care. I've often made this sort of analogy, if you will, of a car, buying a car. When I first bought my first car, I bought it in my community, and I had maybe a dealer or two to go to, and I had to negotiate with them for the price and the ability to get the car. My last car, I went to the internet, and I looked in my entire region where there were 25 different dealerships, and I explored 25 different opportunities and possible circumstances to get the best possible price. And they said, hey, we'll just deliver the car to your doorstep. Now, I mean, what an incredible change in the paradigm of service and outreach, capability, access. And so, the beauty of 2nd.MD leadership is that through this collaborative consultation, you can get to the bottom of your diagnosis. You can develop a treatment plan that gets a patient to the right place for the right care in the right way. And this expansion of access is it's fantastic. It's new and exciting, and it's going to, enable us to treat patients in a much different way, particularly if they need complex treatments or have some serious disease. So the future is for healthcare, again, analogous to my story. It's going to enable us to practice in ways we've never even dreamed before, offering our patients care in a manner that is just unheard of. And it's going to be fantastic.
We're excited to be a part of it. I'm going to ask you that same question before I move on. Where do you see the roadmap of healthcare headed, maybe specifically geared toward virtual visits or digital specialty care?
Well, as we look at medical knowledge, it's doubling faster than it ever has, right? I think part of this solution is being able to bring that expertise to the doorstep of the consumer, of the employer group, the health plan quickly, and getting to that diagnosis. It's really important that, providers, if you talk to them, a lot of them are having a difficult time with staying up with the pace of all the clinical research and evidence that's coming out there. So, we're really excited about how do you use this as a tool to really get the best possible outcome. And quality always drives the bottom line. Dr. Menon, you and I talked about this earlier this week, right? When we focus on getting that patient to the best outcome, you're going to have cost savings because of that. And the results that we've had from this solution are just very exciting. And we think it's just the beginning of what's going to happen here with our clients in providing this service. So far we've seen improved treatment plans in about 82% of the cases that we've used the service for. 30% of the consults have resulted in an alternate diagnosis. Another 30% have resulted in canceled surgeries. And as I mentioned before, the NPS score is just out of this world at 91% for those who've used this service. So we're really excited about that. We think that's a testament to the personal touch and the experience that the member's getting. And we're going to offer this solution to all of our clients. And we expect that there's a tremendous opportunity in offering it as part of the programs we already have in place, but also, stand alone if individuals see a benefit in that. We believe this also breathes new life into empowering the consumer to really take ownership of their decisions. While has long been the way of how we work with the provider community to review appropriateness, now the patient can access and support on their condition and really help them make the best decision based on an expert medical opinion and their goals.
Really, really, really helpful. Thank you for that, Matt. As you're answering these questions, I'm looking through some of the questions that we have coming in through the audience. So thank you so much for those of you that are continuing to submit these. I think I'm gonna back us up just a little bit. So we received a really great question, Matt, from one of the groups, and I'm going to point this back to you, but saying, we're talking a lot about the Optum experience. Is this an Optum experience because it's coming through your sister company and their customers? Is this coming through Optum clinics? When we say Optum clients, can you define kind of some of the clients that you work with or the market that you work with?
Sure. So my responsibility is for the direct market with health plans. When we say health plans, these are plans that are external health plans to our organization, regional plans, Blues, community health plans, plans that are associated with provider-based systems. We work with them today, many of them, almost all of them, in providing solutions across analytics, clinical programs, PBM services. So our primary focus is on the delivery, providing this partnership to that market today, and where we see tremendous opportunity. But in addition to that, there also is where opportunities where Optum is serving the employer market directly. So there's also other channels that we're able to make this available.
Excellent. I'm going to push one more slide out here because we're getting quite a few questions coming in. Matt, can you see the slide that I just pulled up for us?
I can.
Can you do a refresh? And these are specific to some of the health plan results that we're seeing. And we're getting a lot of questions saying, what kind of outcomes are you seeing? Can you just refresh that? I know we threw out probably, I know you have a Rolodex of data probably right on your desk, but I think that these are probably a few of the key metrics that I'm getting in a lot of questions about.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to walk through this. So of the cases that we've had run through this program among our clients, 82% of those cases have seen an improvement in the treatment plan. We think that speaks volume that we're seeing the right cases, the proactive outreach is working. An improvement could be improvement in the quality of the outcome, not always just focused on the cost and the bottom line. In addition to that, of the consults that we've handled, 30% of them have resulted in an alternate diagnosis, which means because of that expert medical opinion, something has changed course here. And now this individual is perhaps on the better path towards the outcome that we all want for them, right? Then another 30% of the total consults are really focused on those canceled surgeries. So perhaps, it wasn't appropriate for that person to get a surgery. Maybe there was a more appropriate therapy or some type of conservative care they can be accessing. It's very common, I think we find within the MSK world that, immediately the recommendation from the provider could be, we want to do a spinal fusion or we want to do some type of surgery or joint procedure. Maybe there's a conservative care option that the patient could still benefit from to avoid that chronic pain, like chiro or acupuncture or physical therapy. So, there's definitely looking at cancel surgeries. We want to make sure if someone needs it, they get it. It's not about, of course, denying care as we talk with our clients, but it's really about what is the best treatment pathway for that consumer.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I will encourage the audience to continue submitting these questions. There's a ton of them coming in. So
awesome.
I'm trying to get them in the order that they're coming in. We'll try to certainly get to all of them. As kind of a follow-up as it relates to some of those questions that are coming in, and I don't know, I can speak to this, or Matt, you can jump in. We're hearing, how exactly does a member get a second opinion? Is Optum sharing like lab data, claims data with 2nd.MD? And I can speak to maybe some of our data exchange, and you can jump in on that one. You're okay?
Correct. Yeah. So going back to we were talking about earlier, there's a couple of different ways we can set up a partnership. One way may be that we're setting up a claims feed with specific layout of data to help us run the analytics and the ID and strat and which members can benefit most from this service. And then we're using that as a means to really execute on outreach and engagement to get those members activated in this program, make them aware of it, hopefully get them enrolled in using the service. And then from that point forward, once that activation has been done and they're bought into using the service, then that's where 2nd.MD comes in, where maybe Meg, you could speak more about how we're gathering the medical records and we're doing that case review and really preparing for that consult.
Absolutely. So it is a second opinion service. It's not a first opinion service. So there does need to be care happening in the local communities for this to be an effective tool to be used. So as Matt mentioned, Second MD and Optum work together very closely for targeted precision outreach. And then once a member has engaged, the Second MD team does have a dedicated records collection team, dedicated by specialty with oversight from a dedicated nurse for each case. We have infrastructure built with many facilities, many labs, many diagnostic testing. It gets more advanced through AI each time that we use it. So Second MD does collect all of the pertinent member medical records on a case and then curates those records for a unique patient summary that is teed up to the specialist that is member matched for that consult to occur. I'm getting a lot of questions coming in around like, well, what does timing look like? We all know that it's really important to provide members and providers information at a time when it can impact the trajectory of care. So we need to do that really early on. And so collecting those medical records early, completely making sure that we're only pulling the pertinent information that is exactly what the specialist needs to render the opinion. I can tell you guys, I was just on a conversation with one of our specialists, and specialists rate like, are we pulling the right information? Is it the right information that we need? And we consistently receive, 99% of the time, we receive a 10 out of 10 on is the right information received by the provider. So really strong feedback coming in from the specialists and from the members as far as how we're collecting that information. That information is actually usually collected within 48 hours. So that consultation happens within an average of 3 to 5 days from the time that the member signs their release of information that they do within the Second MD app. I'm watching additional questions come in. I know we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get to those that I see multiples of. Let's see. We're talking a lot about, proactive outreach. I have a question around, fees our clients charged for proactive outreach. That's, really no. I love that answer. No, there's no additional charge for that one. Optum and Second MD have partnered to make sure that there's a really holistic approach to member engagement. There's no one size fits all approach in order to achieve these best utilization levels. The Optum Second Opinion program, which does include, overall awareness, it includes that precision-based targeting that we talked about, the proactive outreach files and ID and strat that Matt talked about. Also clinical integration, really getting the right cases that we can integrate with Optum programs. But a lot of times when we think about health plans, we're integrating with anyone's health plan. It's a shared portal that's available, and that clinical integration so that any nurse that's managing a case is really important to make sure that you're collaborating on the highest need cases. There's incentive programs for those groups that, are looking for really those highest levels. And then we also do, some webinar series and some custom engagement campaigns. But all of that, of course, is included when you think about the program that's offered through the Optum Second Opinion program. That's a good one. It's an easy one to answer. Types of images, or types of records, I think I just touched on that. It's claims, it's images, it's labs. Everything is available within the app for the specialist to see. I mean, it's just like Matt said, it is just like having a virtual visit. I shouldn't say virtual visit. It is just like having a virtual experience with a specialist. That specialist can talk you through exactly what they're seeing through their, DICOM viewers. They can match them side by side. A lot of times we see specialists maybe using props. I don't see any props behind you, Dr. Bennett, so I don't know if you would be using those in your cardiac consults. Yeah.
No problem, but I want to emphasize the importance of that ability to aggregate data. I know as a practicing physician, there's nothing worse or more difficult, more duplicative than getting a patient and then they fax the records and they're down here, this is over here, there's over there. That in itself is probably one of the most valuable things that can be provided.
Thank you. Algorithms, we have a ton of questions about proactive outreach that I'm kind of going through here. We have some questions around, is it always Optums or can you use second MDs? If the claims are coming through Optum, we'll always use Optum's proactive outreach, because then it is best coordinated with other programs and you can get through the hierarchy of care for best possible member experience. If there is a plan that is contracted through Optum but is not already sending claims to Optum, there is the option to send those claims directly to 2nd.MD and run the 2nd.MD algorithms. Either way, we've done numerous tests and outcome matches to make sure that we're targeting and engaging the right people.
And Meg, just to build on that, I know we've been really flexible for clients as we've had these discussions, that there may be times where the client doesn't have the means to set up a IT and claims feed, right? Just because of resource constraints, but maybe they're doing some type of identification internally. We can build a unique referral process for this program. So while that's we think the most best approach, because it allows us to do the best proactive outreach when either Optum or 2nd.MD gets that claims data to run the ID and strat, we can be very flexible to helping get a client get this program stood up with however they want to make referrals.
Thank you for that. I have a question around how the member can use the second opinion service, and if they need to go through a full visit first. Yes, they absolutely need to go through a full visit first. If someone calls in, one of the things that we didn't talk a lot about is what happens when we talked more about what happens when we reach the members. We talked a little bit less about what happens when the members reach out to us. Something to think about, since this is a service that is predominantly purchased based off of a case rate, there is an upfront vetting process that occurs, a very thoroughly vetted clinical process that makes sure that this member is appropriate to go to an expert, first of all, and that they've had the right workups done to get them to go to a second opinion. If they've not, we're going to make sure that we get them connected back into their appropriate local network to get the visit that is needed, to get the workups that need to be done if necessary, to make sure that we're getting them to the right place and the right peace of mind. And also to make sure that, someone's not going to an elite specialist for a cold, because that would not be beneficial for those that are paying for the service. And our specialists would be very super happy with us for sending those cases their way. Great question.
And Meg, you made me think about something around, we haven't talked a lot about how we can help folks on the phone evaluate what their opportunity may be. So it's, one of the benefits of our partnership is the strength in Optum's bench when it comes to analytics and understanding what those opportunities are. So we could work with folks here around identifying, based upon historical experience, how are maybe these categories of spend stacking up for you compared to what we would expect if you were to deploy a solution like this? So what's the potential savings? What is the ROI going to be? How are we going to get there, right? Because it may not all be through MSK, it may be coming from other areas. And we know that's important, just working with clients, is that you have to go and you have to ask for funding. You're going to have to get this approved. As a process you have to go through. You're probably going to be working downstream with your stakeholders, like your employer groups, for them to add this on. So we can be a partner in that process and really making sure that we're giving you what you need to be successful if you want to offer a solution like this and get your internal stakeholders on board.
Great. I'm going to end on, I want to make sure I'm getting to all of those. I have a question that that states what happens when a second MD provider recommends a procedure or a treatment plan that a local provider disagrees with. And I think that this is an important question. I'm going to take a shot at it, Dr. Menon. If you'd like to chime in, please do so. It's always up to the local provider to render the care. This is a service that provides expert information to layer in some clinical precision to help both the member and the provider make the most informed choice. Ultimately, it's going to be up to that member on which care pathway that member chooses to go forward with. This doesn't replace any prior auth, other clinical programs that are already in place. There's nothing that says the local provider has to adhere to the recommendation. And there's nothing that says that the member has to adhere to the recommendation. We do have a 97% adherence rate because of the rigor that is put into place around collecting the medical records, making sure that we're really listening to what the member needs and what that member's specific goals are, and really ensuring that that member feels empowered with the pros and cons of their choices. If we had another half hour, I could probably give you 15 more examples to that, but it's really meant to add dialogue and conversation, just the same way as if I have a question. I used to be able to walk down the hall. Now I have to pick up the phone for a peer-to-peer consult in my own field, where this is just another opportunity for the member to really feel empowered in a conversation that often lasts 30 to 45 minutes that they frankly aren't getting in their local provider's office with an expert that they normally wouldn't have access to make them feel really empowered, to make a member feel really informed, and to layer in, Dr. Menon, as you said, democratizing the most elite information into the local providers in the very, very capable hands that we know are in local communities across the country. We have 2 minutes, Dr. Menon. Did you want to add anything on that last point?
I would agree. There's always, I think it's a good thing if people have a collaborative discussion about healthcare. That's important. It brings out various ideas. It challenges opportunities. It helps us see what we perhaps didn't see before. And it challenges us to make sure that we're along the right path. And so I think it's, from what I've heard repeatedly, is that the whole concept of the second opinion is to be just that, is to be collaborative, to offer opinions, not to go in and say, hey, this is what you should do, this is what you have to do, or this person is, not doing the right thing. That's not the way it comes across. It's what's this idea? What can we think of? How are these things that you may not have thought about before? So it's important to understand in the way that it's delivered is not challenging, it's collaborative and supportive.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions that we have today. Thank you for all of you to collaborate on the questions that you've been sending in. Thank you for participating with us today. We're happy to answer any additional questions that you might have. I'd encourage you to go out to the Second MD website to get additional information. We'll make sure that we can follow up with any of that information for you. This has been an excellent session. I'm not sure if the folks from AHIP need to do any quick wrap here in the last minute. And if not, I believe that will conclude our event for today. So thank you all so very, very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.